So, a cornerstone and pillar of United States civilization and many other civilizations throughout the world is the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, for decades, for generations, people have fought to manifest this in different forms and if different extents. And there's a lot of different takes on it, which generally fall into advancing it or retreating it and stuff, making it wax or making it wane. And it's tough to say which side is which perspective of it is most consistent with like some absolute theoretical principle of whether they they are uh, right or not, in the sense that their ideas perform the best as a service to the civilization and stuff. Um, Obviously, not every individual. Obviously, it's extremely difficult for every individual to uh, be service to a positive for all of this, or even in the way that they want to. But it's it's kind of like it. There's definitely there's there has to be a principle. There has to be a mechanism of principle and stuff. And you can think of that. Uh, well, regardless of how you think of it and stuff, all variations have to fall within a certain range, and they cannot be given the lie to, either by contest or by method of disproof or a refutation and stuff. Anything you would use to falsify and stuff. Um, so language is a pretty good way of looking at it and stuff. And I've mentioned the preference for language as a representative of that. But um, regardless of what people say, there needs to be a job for everyone. Okay. Um, you cannot Economies cannot have operators that degenerate the the economy overall and stuff. And it becomes a waste of time and energy to produce an operator that is a break even and stuff. And we're not just talking about in terms of money and stuff. There's many other things society values and stuff, and many other things that are just inherently important besides money. There's people that create joy. There's people that give energy to things. There's people that create safety and stuff. You know, when you make the economy just about the monetary economics aspect of it and stuff, you really unnecessarily narrow things down, and um, if God forbid civilization just focused purely on money for a certain amount of years, you'd see serious systemic collapse and destruction and stuff. It's going to be life punishing everybody for being on the wrong idea and stuff. So yeah, so again, there needs to be a job for everyone and stuff. And for there to be a job for everyone, there has to be accommodation for different ability levels and attitudes and perspectives and stuff, different values and attitudes, um, different knowledge areas and stuff. You can't have a narrow range of types of people doing everything and stuff. Um, that leads to all sorts of dangers and creates a lot of vulnerabilities. um, you it can narrow the gene pool. It can make the civilization vulnerable to other civilizations and stuff. And by simplifying civilization too much, and I'm just gonna just give me a moment. Okay, so that was interesting. Um, Almost overcooked my food. So hmm. So in studying and completing multiple certifications in leadership and in management. There's the White Belt in Operations Management from the Project Management Institute, and from doing 4 certifications with the National Society for Leadership and Success. Um, you have like the intros, like fundamentals, and you have the be- um, beginner, um, advanced, and executive. Um, just to describe the certifications. In doing those, I learned, or it's not that I learned it, but like it really brought it to my attention that when you have a more diverse civilization, you really do get a lot of different perspectives and stuff because, single civilizations, like single cultures or ethnocultural groups, even single genders, however you want to, narrow a type of person, they're not very good at knowing the experience of other people. um, they're and they're not very good at knowing the philosophies of the other kind of cultures and stuff, and uh, that tends to lead to some problems. And when you as groups, when they're homogenous groups, they tend not to be aware of the drawbacks and benefits to their behaviors. And um, you know when a person is biologically programmed to behave in a certain way, they um, or and then maybe that's very dramatically, very strongly enforced by um, the upbringing and the repetitions they've gone through in their upbringing. They tend to not be very good at seeing the different variations of how they can go out their day or do their work and stuff or solve certain problems. So yeah, there's gonna be um, plenty of people from each of the different cultures, from the different genders and from the different religions and so on. They're gonna, donate something great and stuff. And granted, those transitional periods can have some roughness, but you know, it's really, I think, you know, it stands anyway. You know, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those, this is definitely a very valuable thing. Um, I'm sorry, like if you thought of this channel as something that was going to, uh, that was gonna like personally, not personally, but like that was going to like be like your personal advocate for just you and stuff. The it's really not a good value, and that's not. It's just like it's. I heavily recommend you think about different perspectives and just you know in a more positivist way and stuff. I'm not telling you not to be yourself or anything. I'm just telling you like to grow through learning more of the truth. Um, it's gonna be it's gonna be to your psychological benefit, and it's going to make you happier in the end. And um, yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say here on that topic. Um, I didn't have a ton of time to talk about all of the good things about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and why it's important. Um, but yeah, if you don't agree with it, it's you should probably just go live in another country. Honestly, this is not what the United States is about. It was never about this. Like even since 1776, since the early days of the 13 colonies and the pioneering days and stuff, where they were like starting to build Rhode Island and stuff like that. There was different cultures here. You had Greeks and Ashkenazi Jews, Sephardic Jews, and Africans, um, uh, and and Northern and Western Europeans from like England and the Netherlands, and coming here, and eventually, and in a pretty short amount of time, everybody was coming here. There was a lot of different religions coming here. Um, so this has always been the the fact of our country, and it's you know this is it's the doctrine, but it's also something that as a country we've come to have such experience with that we've learned to work with it and value it and stuff. So yeah, if this is if if you want to be a I'm not gonna say hateful person, but like if you want to be like some kind of supremacist for for whatever like demographic you put yourself in, um, I'm sorry. It's this is um, you can't you shouldn't be here, honestly, or you should just like stay within your community and stuff, and just not veer too far away from your community. Um, there's you probably would see much better life outcomes there and stuff. Now, some people they they might use their experience to counteract this point, like, oh, people they respond positively to these discriminatory behaviors and views and systems and blah blah blah, and maybe that's not really what I'm talking about then. Has that occurred to you and stuff? If those things are actually a positive for those people, and that there's making those people happy and functioning better and blah blah blah, and making things more conductive or conducive, um, and meeting with the the psychological values of their identity, then maybe that's not what I'm talking about and stuff. I'm talking about the things that make those people burn, the things that harm those people's circumstance, the things that um, wrongfully exclude those people from accessing certain resources, that dehumanize, that subject them to harmful systems and processes of the civilization, things like that. So um, I would, you know, to people who don't agree with me here, I would just pay more attention to the premise before um, taking it to arguments and stuff, because there are different ways to think about this logically and stuff. There's a descriptive logic perspectives, and there's uh, there's re-expressions and stuff like that. But forcing the issue is not something that's necessarily has to come first and stuff. That can come later, or even not at all, so to speak. When it comes to contesting the premise and stuff. But you may disagree with my points and views, but you know all of reality in this civilization is against you. You know, but if you're gonna be disrespectful to how United States civilization um, is and is going to work, then just leave. Just leave. Get out. You don't need to be here if you don't respect this country. Sorry, or our lands and stuff, because there's Puerto Rico, there's U.S. Virgin Islands and stuff like that, Guam, and many other U.S. territories. And I've been talking for almost 17 minutes and stuff. I think I've said about 100% of what can be said. I've wasted enough time between tending to my cooking, uh, which, by the way, smells really good. Wow, that smells good. And damn, that's tasty. So yeah, I'm just gonna end. I'm gonna eat my food.